Another blood-red sunset and yet another moon face, and still another 100 miles to my next resting place. Driving down the road, eyes on the horizon. Within my car, I'm all alone, but feeling good and feeling strong, knowing that this path I'm on brings me to myself. I'm driving.
Hey now all, I'm Joey C. Welcome back to another episode of Spirit Sherpa. This is the show that helps and encourages you on your journey to unlock your magic mojo. With me, as always, is the spirit doctor, Kelle Sparta. Hey, Kelly.
Hey, Joey.
So we're back to scary stuff here on Spirit Sherpa.
Yay! Back to our roots.
Why do I see in the notes here that we're going to talk about the apocalypse?
Because we are.
What does that mean, Kelly?
Well, it's the apocalypse, the four horsemen and all that other fun stuff.
And you've said this before, but let's sort of start out our conversation today by explaining to everybody who might have heard you say it and go, what you talking about, Willis? And
well, you just dated yourself.
Yeah, I really did. I really did.
I love you.
So for those people who got freaked out a little bit by you saying we're living in the apocalypse, what do you mean by that?
The apocalypse is actually a time of transition, right?
Okay.
And, it's technically the end of the world,
Yes.
Little things. But as we know from our studying of the death card, very rarely is death actually death, although, death sometimes happens as a function of it.
Right.
But death is a transformation card. It's a death and rebirth card.
Okay.
And so the apocalypse, when seen from that perspective, is similar. We had this, oh my God, the sky is falling when 2012 was coming because of the Mayan calendar ending.
Right.
And it's like, well, no, it was just an age ending and another age beginning. And that's okay. The idea that, yes, we were coming to an ending, but that the lack of an awareness of the beginning that came after that was the part that freaked everybody out. We have this thing in our culture that we don't do death well.
Yeah.
We don't even acknowledge death unless we absolutely have to. And we really don't want to even do it then. We're just like, yeah, well, I'll be over here. And so this is the challenge when you start looking at things in the mystical world, because the physical reality is a death and rebirth process. I mean, nothing on the planet lives forever.
Right.
So you gotta know things are going to end. It's just sort of the nature of the beast. And so when you talk about the apocalypse, I really want you to think about it in the terms of the death card in the tarot, which is death and rebirth.
Okay.
And transformation. It ends being one thing and begins being another. Shamanic death. Mm-hmm. Where you cease to be one thing and you begin to be something else. So this is where we are. And I don't think anybody, at least in the US and truly around the world, between the pandemic, which is pestilence,
right,
one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, there's famine that's happening in Africa, and there's war that's always happening somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And then death. And we're having a lot of death with the coronavirus, and the death that is the death of the people of color in the U.S. who have sparked the huge uprising of the Black Lives Matter movement. And so when you take all those pieces together, that's freaking apocalyptic, right?
Yeah.
And then there was, and don't ask me what these signs are. I tried to go back and look them up, and because astrological stuff is not my thing, but I remember, because it was when I got married, that, in September 27th, 2015, was a super blood moon after a lunar eclipse, after another, solar eclipse. There was like a series of eclipses, both lunar and solar, and a series of super blood moons and super moons that happened that signified, for those who studied the Bible and the signs in the Bible, that the apocalypse started on the day I got married. which was accidental, by the way. We were going to get married the day before, and the venue wasn't available. So, but I always said it would be the end of the world if I ever got married again. So sorry. But there was a whole lot of confluence that happened that hit all the markers for the beginning of the apocalypse in 2015. And so, now we've been rolling forward. Now that was September 27th. Do the math. The election happened November 3rd. And then the upset of everybody expecting it to be Hillary and it was Trump. Suddenly you're like, oh shit. And the signifiers of the apocalypse, one of them is the returning of the Antichrist, or the coming of the Antichrist, and the returning of Christ. Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to put a wild ass theory out there because it just hit me the other day. Uh-oh. And we've been seeing a lot of movies and that sort of reinforce it for me. What if Fred Rogers was Christ returned? Okay. I buy it. Mr. Rogers, totally Christ-like. Yep. And then, what do we know of about the Antichrist? Well, the Antichrist is the Prince of Lies. And Trump has been reported to have done something in excess of 18,000 lies in his term of office. And, when he's accused of lying, he just lies again. It's just his response. And I'm sorry if you are a Trump supporter and you're listening right now. I'm sorry. I am just reporting the facts that have been reported by the publications out there. And I know I'm probably upsetting the crap out of you. And I apologize. I'm just here. I'm going to make it better in 1 second. So don't stop listening. Okay. So Mary Balkin and I, and Mary was on one of the earlier episodes, Mary and I were talking the other day, and we were talking about the trickster gods. Okay. We've within the Christian cosmos, there's only good and evil. Yeah. But when you look at a broader mythological perspective, there isn't as much about good and evil as there is about different types of beings. So, even the quote unquote good gods are known for doing shitty things. Right. There's no morality within the world of gods, is really what it comes down to. Morality is a uniquely human thing. And in our culture, we both eschew anything associated with death, but we also eschew anything associated with a lack of black and white morality, good and bad, good and evil, up and down, whatever. Yep. Duality. They need duality. So as a result, the trickster god, which is what Trump clearly is, he is a trickster god, and he is operating in a trickster mode, which for those of you who are Marvel Comics fans, Loki is a trickster god, right? So if you need a point of reference, Loki. The purpose of a trickster god is to mess with you until you wake up. And they just mess with you so that you see things differently. So we talked about this a little bit with the Heyoka. Yep. But Mary pointed out, yeah, he's a trickster god. And in Christian cosmology, a trickster god would be labeled as an antichrist. Okay. And so, it's I'm not saying he's evil. I'm saying that he's a trickster god and he is messing with us to screw things up. Now, does that mean that evil things happen sometimes from a, good and evil perspective? Yeah, that does. But gods have no morality. Right. And so, but this is why people are following him with such faith, right? There's a lot of people going, why would anybody vote for Trump? They don't understand, right? Yeah. But they're not voting from a perspective of intellectual decision-making. They are voting, they've transferred their faith onto him, which again, it brings up the Antichrist dynamics for those who are predicting the future. Right. So it's become the religion of Trump. Right. And that's what a god would inspire, is a religion. Right. And so there's all this sort of fun stuff that's going on right now. And I've probably got people spinning their heads right now. But yeah, it's the apocalypse. So shit, I'm just going to talk about it. Right.
You've got people spinning their heads on all sides of the aisle right now. You've got them all going crazy.
Good at that, right? Alienate everybody. At least I'm an equal opportunity alienator. Right?
There you go.
But the upshot is that for all the garbage that Trump has done and will do, trust me, it's coming. He's actually catalyzed massive amounts of change. You know, from the moment he was elected, people started flocking into the spiritual world to become more self-actualized because they just couldn't deal with not being able to control what happened on the bigger scale. And so they needed to control their own environment, right? Mm-hmm. And so that happened. And now with all of the stuff that he's done, and all of the ways in which he's mismanaged coronavirus and the Black Lives Matter campaign, you know, the response, not campaign, but response, he's catalyzed even more change, right? And so that's what a trickster god does, is that they do the opposite to catalyze something that is, you know, awareness raising, right? So, you know, there are many animals, not many, but there are some animals in shamanic practice that are associated with trickster energies. And it depends on the tribe that you go to as to which animals is which, right? Mm-hmm. But a fairly common energy is rabbit, right? And fox is actually one. My shaman told me about fox back 20 years ago. And he looked at me and he said, yeah, fox is an interesting energy. He said, it steals away something you really thought you needed. And it does it very quietly in the middle of the night when you're not looking. And a month later, you turn around and go, wait, where is that? I need that. And then you go, wait, I haven't had it for a month. Maybe, do I really need that? Right. Well, I wanted that, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, there's fox energy, and then there's rabbit energy, which is just a trickster. And Bugs Bunny is a perfect example of a trickster rabbit, mm-hmm. right? He is the ultimate trickster rabbit to Elmer Fudd, yep. Poor thing, you know. So, and Daffy, for that matter,
to everyone. Right? That's his
everyone.
Thing. Yeah.
You know, he's just like, but this is the energy of the trickster, yep. right? And so, as you look at it, there's also indicators, and I went looking for them and I couldn't find them, but I had a conversation with somebody else and we were trying to remember what the Nostradamus predictions of this time were. And I remember seeing something on TV years ago that predicted that an indicator of the end of times would be when the man with the blue turban was in power. And if you think about that, a Muslim, which would be the turban representation for a 16th century Nostradamus, mm-hmm. right? And blue is Democrat.
Yeah,
that would be Obama. He'd be the indicator of the end of times.
Okay, but he wasn't Muslim.
Well, but he was accused of being Muslim, right? It was a big thing that he was accused of being Muslim, right? So it was like this huge process that went about in the campaign. So it would have been something that, so in order to understand prognostication, you have to understand how people get the information. Mm-hmm. And what they're looking at as they look forward is they're looking at what are so if you know those word salads that show up on pages that tell you what words appear most often, and yep. the ones that appear most often are bigger. It's kind of like that in the energetic realm. And so the word Muslim would have come up big in the context of the election because it was a huge campaign yep. thing that happened, right? And even though it's not true, it came up enough that it could be attached to on a prognostication. So, you know, it's a stretch, but Nostradamus has had a habit of, you know, hiding his stuff because he didn't want to be hung for or burned for witchcraft. Go figure. So, you know, he made things not entirely obvious so that they were explainable.
Right.
You know, oh no, I didn't mean that. I meant this. Yeah. And you know, you couldn't prove it because it wasn't stated explicitly. You know, so you know, you get a kind of stretch for any of his prophecies because he was stretching, mm-hmm. or he was obfuscating, yeah. right? So that's sort of the thing there. So there's a lot of different pointers to indicate that we are in the apocalypse. You know, the massive plague was like a huge one, right? That's sort of a not missable one. It's like a worldwide plague in our day and age is
right.
unheard of.
Unheard of. Yep.
Unheard
Absolutely.
of. It's unprecedented and likely will never happen again, right? It's just, with the technology we have, with our ability to manage and track these things, there's no reason this should have happened at the scale that it did, right? None. Worldwide. And that's not me pointing fingers at Trump. That's just worldwide. We were unprepared. And there was no excuse for that to be the case. And divine intervention said it had to happen, and therefore
it happened.
Everybody who knew that they should plan for it was just sort of swept under the rug, and everything was pushed off because this moment in time had to happen in order for these things to occur. Mm-hmm. This is one of the challenges when you start getting into this, is that people are like, well, aren't you doing healing work for the planet right now? And I'm like, I'm not. And they're like, well, why? You should be healing people. And I'm like, no, this is what it is. And, if I have somebody I know personally and who comes to me personally and says, I'm sick, I will do healing work for them because I know them personally and they're mine and, whatever. But impacting the global shift, it's hubris on my part to think that if I were to go out and do healing work, that it would be good. I've actually checked. I've gone out into the universe and said, where can I be of service? And they said, sit in your house and wait. And I went, but where can I be of service? And they said, talk to your clients, talk to your students, sit in your house and wait. And I'm like, but really? And they're like, yeah, that's it. Okay. Because as much as it sucks, and it does, every major shift of this scale, World War I, World War II, the Black Plague, this coronavirus, it's all fueling change. Every time something massive on this scale happens, change happens. The Black Lives Matter movement would not have gotten the momentum it did if we hadn't all been sitting in the trauma of the plague, desperately wanting some way to exert control over our environment and desperately needing to get the hell out of our houses, right? It wouldn't have happened at this scale because this is the only time that people weren't distracted enough that they were paying attention, right? And so it serves a purpose. And it sucks the way it happens, but on a larger scale, there's a reason for it, right? Yep. And those who are leaving the planet as a result of it are part of the transformational process. They're actually serving as transformational catalyzers, much like those who died in 9/11 did. They served as catalyzers for the country. You have ways of looking at things, and I'm really... I can hear that there are some beginners on the call right now who are having a meltdown. And I need you to go back to the beginning of the podcast and start listening from there, because the people who have listened all the way through, I am talking to you because you have the context to understand what I'm saying. If you're new to the podcast today, I really encourage you to just go back to the beginning and listen, because once you get here throughout the listening of all the podcasts, you will have a better understanding of what it is that I'm trying to say to you. Joey, you started with me in the very beginning as the quintessential listener. Are you flipping out with the conversation I'm having right now?
No, not at all.
Okay. And this is what I'm saying. So if you're flipping, go back to the beginning and then come back to this one when you've gotten back up through, and it will make much more sense to you at that point.
Okay, so we're in the apocalypse. We've established that. There's all kinds of things. Let's let the flippers kind of come back a little bit here, because now's where you're going to tell us, and I beg you to tell us, what the heck do we do? Oh,
you want an instruction.
We're going out into the universe, Kelly, and the universe is you. What do we do now?
Okay. Let me think about that.
What, you didn't know that question was coming? you know your people. You know we want answers.
So here's the thing. Any time of great planetary transition, and so as above, so below, as within, so without, right? Mm-hmm. And so any time of great planetary transition is going to fuel and supplement in a sympathetic magic way any internal transformation. And I know that you're immediately going to be going, but no, I need to do something for the planet. But no, I need to be going out and do it. No, you need to be evolving yourself, because when you evolve yourself, it ripples out through every single person you're connected to. And that is how you evolve the planet. Okay. The problem is we get into this thinking that we have to go out into the world and do things. And the going out into the world and doing things is it's something that people who don't know how to do magic do.
Okay.
I can have a massive impact on the planet sitting in my living room. Okay. And I have, I'm not going to say all the things that I've done because I don't necessarily want people to know, but because, sometimes I do things that I don't want to get in trouble for, but there are ways in which that you can create change within, simply within a magical context. But you can't do that unless you are evolving yourself to the point where you can, right? You have to address your inner issues. If you want to see hate end in the world, end it in your own heart. If you want to see lack and poverty end in the world, end it in your own heart. Okay. Because we're all one, right? We are all one. And so when each of us individually evolves, eventually we all hit a tipping point. And even the heaviest of sleepers have to wake up. Right. So I've been talking to people for 20 years about the sleepers. Some of them are really attached to sleeping. They're really attached to sleeping. And for 20 years, they've been really, and the more people wake up, the more attached they become to their sleeping, right? Right. And that's because the people around them are going, hey, wake up, wake up, wake up. And they're like, leave me alone, I'm sleeping, leave me alone, I'm sleeping. They're defending. You don't want to push someone who is sleeping really hard and attached to their sleeping into waking up, because all you do is make them defend against it more. You're better off to just do your own thing and let them notice that, hey, life is different for you. Why is that? Right. And that's when they begin to wake up. Otherwise, you're inoculating them against it. And I was bad about that. I was really bad about that. Kathy had to teach me about that one. And I went, oh, no! I was so upset because I thought I knew and everybody had to know. And yeah, no. Let them be, right? Okay. And so what you need to be doing right now, if you want to be part of this, I'm not going to tell you have to, because, you're a sovereign being, do what you will. But if you're asking me what I would recommend, which you did, I would say work on yourself. Do your own evolution, because that evolution, if you think about this, every person in your life who you care about in any way and who cares about you has an energetic connection to you. And when you do this work, your energy impacts them, whether you speak to them about it or not, because you are energetically connected to them. Okay. And it calls their energy into a higher vibration. Now, for some people, they will follow that call and start the process with you. For others, they will go, I don't like the feeling of this and I need to go now. And they will pick a fight and find a reason to not be friends with you anymore. Yep. The thing that you can do to impact the most people is to up-level your vibration. And that is not meditation. It is not trying to leave your body. It is not becoming the queen of Namaste or the king of Om. It is about really digging into the shadow spaces in you and digging out the crap. Okay. Because positive, bright light and bunny thinking is not going to fix it.
So the only thing to do during this is do you. Do you. All right. One final question I have to ask.
I'm afraid.
As am I. I didn't even want to ask the question, but I'm going to.
Okay.
when apocalypse ends, he says in air quotes, what's the world going to look like?
Well, there's a lot of literature around the concept, and you can see it reflected. So the Hopi Indians they just disappeared. No, I'm sorry, the Anasazis. The Anasazis just disappeared one day. There was no indication that they were in trouble, no indication that they left and emigrated,
Elsewhere.
And somewhere else. They just disappeared. And the understanding is that they evolved to another plane of existence. And if you read the Celestine prophecy, there's a point in the book where people just show up that are on another dimensional plane. I had a long conversation when I first got to Virginia with a Jehovah's Witness. And I talked to her about the 144,000 people and trying to understand what that was about. And the understanding, the belief that they hold is that there are 144,000 people who serve as sort of a celestial government because they expect the earth to become the Garden of Eden again, that it is to become paradise again. If you take that concept and you take the Anasazis and you take the concept of Judgment Day with, the dead rising up out of the ground is the way it's visioned, but it's really much both, and it's reflected in the movie Left Behind, right? Where people just disappear off the planet and, the other people are left behind, right? And so it's a psycho-spiritual up-leveling to another dimension is what is called for in the mythology of it, right? Of Revelations. What's it going to look like? Depends on whether you're here or you're the other place. Depends on whether you're staying or going, right? And I imagine that if you're staying, it'll look not much different, just a lot quieter because there'll be a lot fewer people, right? I know you want an answer. I know. And I'm not just talking to Joey with this.
No.
I know you want an answer. The challenge is that no one could have imagined, well, some people did, but most people couldn't have imagined a pandemic of this scale and what impact that would have had on everything, right? And then followed by a civil rights movement and followed by who knows what next, right? And, it's a cascade. This is what happens is that there will be something next.
Yeah.
I promise you, there will be something next. We're in a cascade. And trying to identify what comes next is going to make you crazy. And it's going to stress you out and make you anxious. And I don't recommend it. Instead, what I recommend is making a plan for what you choose to do and reinforcing for yourself what you can do and how adaptable you are. Okay? Because no matter what happens, it isn't the thing that happens that impacts us. It is our reaction to it and our response to it. And if we're already in a state of heightened anxiety and freak out, we lose 10 points of IQ from the fear.
Yep.
And so your best bet is to say, is my house on fire? No. Am I healthy? Yes. Is there food in the fridge? Yes. Is my family safe? Yes. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to worry about anything other than that. What is true right now is. And I'm going to look at the news just long enough to know what's going on. And that means in my world, I look at it 30 minutes every 3 or 4 days, max, because it makes me nuts. Okay. When I start to invest in it, it starts to spin me up, and I don't want to be spun up because there's nothing I can do about it. Right. So you're just enough to be informed. You make your decisions, make your plans, put some money aside, do what you need to do, and just be in the moment and be work on your emotional resilience, because your ability to be with what is going to be a huge factor in being able to, surf what's coming instead of getting, tumbled by the waves and face planted into the sand and, turned upside down by the water.
Yep.
Either scenario could be you, depending on how you engage, right? If you engage with fear, I promise you will face plant at some point.
Yep.
Okay. And it's very easy to engage with fear. Let me just say this out loud. I have gotten into fear spaces myself in the last 3 months. It has happened, and I have had to pull myself out of it because it's so prevalent in the collective consciousness. This fear is just a half of hair breadth away, and being anything less than vigilant against it, and it comes creeping in. And once it creeps in, it ramps up very quickly into panic. And so, choosing wisely is a good idea, right? I don't want you to engage in self-recrimination around being anxious and fearful, because it's very easy to do. And I mean, I am masterful at avoiding fear and anxiety, and I have fallen into it. Okay. So it is very difficult right now. And so, do the best you can, and don't beat up on yourself when you fail. Just be like, yep, Kelly failed too. I'm going to pull myself out of this. I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to, breathe down into it. I'm going to focus on what's in front of me and what's true, and say, look, I'm safe. I am well. I am okay. I'm not under attack. It's okay. And I'm going to focus on that. And I'm going to walk away from the news for a week until I can center myself again. Right. So that sort of thing. And if it really spins you up, get a buddy and have them watch the news for 1 week, and you watch the news for 1 week, or you watch it. You guys each reflectively take one every 4 days, and you alternate, and then every 2 days you know what's going on. And if the other person needs to know, you let them know. Otherwise, you leave it be.
Well, and that's a great point, this idea of support systems, because that's what we're going to need through all of this, no matter where we end up after apocalypse is gone. And one support system, throw it out there, is our Facebook group. It's a place
Absolutely.
where, people are going to have a lot of questions. They're going to be spun up a little bit from this episode. So guys, come into the Spirit Sherpa Podcast After Party Facebook group, and let us know what you're thinking. Let your friends out there know what you're thinking and feeling, and maybe that's one of those support tools that we'll have to leverage to get through this, because it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting. Lots to take in here, Kelly. Yeah. Big shout out to the person who referred. Yes. I think you said that the question had come from Nicolette had given the question. Yeah. She contacted me on Facebook and said, would you talk about this? I'm like, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks for that, Nicolette. But all right, Nicolette, here you go. This one's for you. Oh boy. All right. Well, I need to go have a drink. Okay. Have one for me. Yes. I don't have any. So I can de-spin myself here, but no, this has been really good. I think you need to sum it up for everybody, though, in terms of a Kellyism to take us out, because we need something, some moment of Om here to put it all together. You create your reality. Choose one you'll like. And there it is. Om. All right. That is all that we have for this week. But be sure to join us next time, folks, as Kelly adds another chapter into your guide to energy, magic, and the spirit world. I'm Joey C. here with Kelle Sparta, and you have been listening to Spirit Sherpa. So long, everyone. Bye. Travel over 13,000 now. I'll leave behind a little fear. Spirit Sherpa is the sole property of Kelle Sparta Enterprises and is distributed under Creative Commons BY-NC-ND 4.0 license. For more information about this licensing, please go to creativecommons.org. Any requests for deviations to this licensing should be sent to KELLE@KELLESPARTA.com. That's Kelly@KelleSparta.com. To sign up or to get more information on the programs, offerings, and services referenced in this episode, please go to KelleSparta.com. This episode of Spirit Sherpa has been produced by Honu Voice Productions.